Hi everyone, this is Sharath and welcome to the channel. We hear a lot about doomsday predictions in artificial intelligence, that is AI, and how AI can act and take over the world. Elon Musk recently tweeted that AI can be more dangerous than nuclear weapons. But if you're like me, it's difficult for us to take these predictions seriously. However, I recently read this book called Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark, who is actually an MIT physicist. And that is what I want to talk about in this video. And I would say after reading the book, I've changed my mind a bit. So what is Life 3.0? Before we define what Life 3.0 is, let's define what life is. Life is something that can replicate itself and also keep its complexity. Note that what is being replicated is not the organism itself, but the DNA or the code or the information to recreate the organism, right? Now, author defines three stages of life. The first is life 1.0, which is the biological life. Think amoeba or mice or any other animal. These animals cannot change their software or their hardware, right? They are fixed and they learn through evolution, which is a very slow process. Second is life 2.0, that is mostly humans. Now we can learn through our experiences. Learning a new language is like installing a new software into our brains. So we can change our software, but our hardware is fixed. Now, Life 3.0. Life 3.0 is technological life. These are robots that can change their hardware as well as their software as need arises. How can a non-living thing like a blob of matter be intelligent? Let's take this question step by step. First, let's define what intelligence is. Intelligence is defined as the ability to accomplish complex goals. Here, the word complex is deliberately vague. One thing to note here is that intelligence is defined in a value neutral way. By value neutral, we mean that the robot can be good or evil, just like people. A robot that cooks you dinner is also intelligent. A robot that assassinates you is also intelligent. Now let's look at different facets of intelligence. First is memory, then is computation, then is learning and consciousness. And we use our brain for all these functions. Now let's look at how non-living matter can do these functions. First, let's start with memory. Let's define what memory is first. Memory is a way of storing information. Now this begs the question, what is information? Information is a way of abstracting what reality is. What we mean by that is, take the example of atlas. In an atlas we have different colors, different drawings of a lot of like countries or states or things like that. It represents, so that is information, and that represents the reality of the world as we know it, right? So coming back to the definition of information is a way to abstract whatever we know in reality to some sort of way that we can understand or store it. And the way we store it is we store in memory, and we use our brains to store it, right? Now, how do we store it physically in non-living things? It's stored in books, CDs, DVDs, hard disks, etc. So what do these things have in common? The one thing these things have in common is that they are all solids. Now let's look at what is computation. Computation is the way of transforming one memory state to another. For this, we need the devices to be solid, but it also needs some flexibility. Think abacus. Abacus is actually a solid, but there is a lot of flexibility to move around. So you have one memory state and then you do some computation and then we get another memory state. This ability to change is important for a computational device, and that is why most computation in computers happen in semiconductors, because we can change each semiconductor from a conductor to a non-conductor by varying current. So computers are already very good at memory and computation, way better than us. And with machine learning and AI, they are actually getting better at learning too. A common theme in the book is something called emergent properties. By emergent property, I mean that when matter is arranged in a certain way, it actually gets newer properties. Like when water is between 0 degrees and 100 degrees, it is wet. But before that or after 100 degrees, it's not. Similarly, when matter is arranged in a certain way, it can memorize, it can compute, it can learn, and probably become conscious as well. There's nothing from a physics standpoint that is stopping matter from becoming intelligent. So what is the safety issue here? The issue is not that AI would suddenly become evil. It's just that it will become so competent that we might not be able to control it. Think about ants. We humans are not specifically evil towards ants. But if an ant is there in a construction site, or an anthill is there in a construction site, good luck to the ants, right? Like, it's just gonna die. Similarly, we don't want to be in a position of ants with respect to the future AI, where both of our goals are completely misaligned. So what are the major timelines here? One major tipping point is when AI can recursively improve itself. That is when we create an AI system that can design other AI systems. This point is really important because once this happens, the intelligence would explode and it would exponentially increase and would become really, really powerful. So the goal alignment has to happen before this tipping point. So what are people doing about this now that we know that there is a lot of danger about AI? So there is actually some traction on this subject. There are institutes like OpenAI and Allen Institute, and also Max Tegmark, the author of this book Life 3.0, actually created an institute called Future of Life. They're all working on this. People like Elon Musk are also funding this. So I would say there are some pretty important people and organizations working on this. Should I personally worry about this? I personally think that artificial general intelligence is still far away. But if COVID-19 has taught us anything, it is that we as a species and as a community are generally underprepared for any of these novel problems that come up. So any kind of research on these kind of problems would be definitely beneficial. So kudos to all the scientists and researchers and engineers who are actually working on this. Thanks a lot for watching, and this is my interpretation of the book Life 3.0. If you have time, please read the book. It's a fascinating read. Thank you.